Well, if it's Friday, it's Backstory. And CNN's Aisha Sasay looks inside a camp of revolutionaries without a revolution. And it's a desperate situation right now. Let's get some background from Jim Clancy. He's been talking about this actually going on for what, 20 years?
Yeah, well, this group started out even further back in history inside Iran. Marxists, Leninists wanted to overthrow the Shah of Iran, carried out attacks against him and his friends, including terror attacks that killed Americans. They are on the official U.S. list of terror organizations. But ironically, Kira, these are the guys who say, you know, all of that information that the CIA missed, that the Mossad missed on Iran's nuclear enrichment program, it came from them. So they have a lot of support in Congress. But the fact is, time and the tides of political change have completely swept these people away. There's about 4,000 of them in a camp where they were allowed to live by Saddam Hussein, and he used them to fight the Iranians during the Iran-Iraq war. He even used them against the Kurds, the Iraqi Kurds, in their own country. They're not well liked. Now, this new military government, as they were sheltering in Iraq, today, Nouri al-Maliki, the Iraqi prime minister, he was sheltering in Iran. The Iranians, they want to get rid of these guys. So the Iraqi government is showing its independence from the U.S., and it wants to move them out of their camp down to a place that, it's like crematoria, that prison planet on that you saw on the Chronicles of Riddick. That's where they want to send them to, and these people don't want to go. Let's take a look at what Aisha Sasay has in this backstory.
Here we are at the back of one of our cars waiting to get into Camp Ashraf, which is a camp that an Iranian opposition group have had in Iraq for well over 20 years. And essentially, this is the day that the Iraqi government has decided that they must leave this camp and be relocated elsewhere. It's taken a lot to get to this position, to get here. We're still not quite in the camp yet. A lot of security checks, a lot of security forces standing around us. We are waiting to see what happens next. We hope to get into the camp shortly. It will be the first time CNN cameras have been inside this camp, and we understand that there are roughly over 3,500 members of this group here, the People's Mujahideen of Iraq, or Mujahideen Khalq as they're known. So we're going to go in and see what kind of situation they have in there, what kind of living standards, just what the arrangements have been over the last 20 odd years, and we'll bring you more details.
Welcome to a very orchestrated visit, but at least you've got a visit.
Yeah,
which is more than anybody else has got. Do you know how many correspondents have tried to do the story?
Finally in the camp, we've just come through the gates. Quite elaborate, if our statue right at the gates back there with a gold lion on it. It had said something along the lines of solidarity. We're just driving in now to the heart of the camp, going by lots of buildings, fenced off, but we're really going to get a proper look at things when we stop. We're being led by Iraqi security forces. Not quite sure where we're going, but we shall soon find out. All right, then. We just jumped into the back of a truck because we're not allowed to get into the camp proper in our own cars, in our own civilian cars, if you want to call them that. So, as you can see, the crew and several other crews are all in this truck, and we're about to make our way down. There was just a kind of impromptu press conference, if you want to call it. That was some members of Camp Ashraf sharing with the media their views on this forced eviction. They say they don't want to leave. We're now going into the camp proper, where these cars with loudspeakers are going to read out a statement and basically say to them the Iraqi government is committed to moving them from this place. We'll just see what happens. Right now, the residents are very clear. They do not want to leave. We do not know whether force will be used in the coming days. We'll wait to see what happens.
You know why? Because it's more than 22 years that we are here. Here is my home. You know, I ask you if they can, if somebody can tell you. You see, in the European countries, everywhere, more than 20 years. They ask you are the resistance of this country. How they can ask us to live here?
It's really a difficult position that a journalist finds themselves in when you are surrounded by people who are obviously in a lot of distress for whatever reason, and they desperately want to get their story out to you. And that's what we do with this job. We get people's stories out. We get both sides of the stories out. And it's just been, it's a day where, we would like to spend more time here. We'd like to get more of a sense of the kind of lives people live here. But our time is not our own. Our time is being very closely guarded and structured by the Iraqi authorities. But it was a rare chance, a very rare opportunity that you heard from the women of Camp Ashraf, hearing their side, hearing their stories.
Wow. So the signs that they're showing, well, I mean, obviously what we saw, they're making pleas, right?
Sure.
In English.
They had signs in English because they're reaching out to the international community. They were up on the Hill this week. They got congressmen to support them, saying you leave them where they are because they know if a couple of things happen. If they get moved out to that camp, as a revolutionary group, they're finished. But they have to be moved in the Iraqi government's view because they still have the potential, and they've done it. They sneak into Iran, carry out a mortar attack or a rocket attack. In some cases, innocent civilians have been killed. The Iraqis want to show their independence from the Americans, and they say, you're going to move.
Why did we only see women in that camp?
Well, for the most part, they're only women. I think they want to put forward a very benign face. As if to the world that, we're not the kind of a revolutionary group that's going to threaten anybody. But in fact, there's a lot of people in Iraq that don't like these people, that feel that they sided with Saddam Hussein. Their leader was seen, shaking hands with Saddam. They did Saddam's bidding. This isn't a popular group. The water lines to that camp have been blown up.
So why hasn't it been closed down by now?
Well, they have a lot of lobby power. The U.S. was in there protecting them. After the invasion in 2003, the U.S. bombed that camp. But they reached a ceasefire in April of 2003.
But didn't take it out, obviously.
No, but they did disarm them. And the U.S. was in there protecting them. As I said, they were the guys that revealed Iran's nuclear enrichment program. They are seen as having some value somewhere, but it's a cult of personality. It is no doubt, it's a terrorist group, officially with the U.S. State Department. It's a very troubling group of about 4,000 people. And what's the world going to do with them? They can't go back to Iran. They'll be executed or imprisoned. Nobody anyplace else really wants them, although their leaders are headquartered in France right now.
Wow. Well, Isa did an incredible job. It was an interesting backstory. And Singer, thanks so much, Jim. You can also get a lot more on this intriguing story on the website. We want to plug that for sure. Just log on to CNN.com/backstory.